Today on Pots and Trowels I'm going to be testing the soil in our new garden and starting to look at the design, and that's brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and Allett. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Well, today we're in the garden and I'm starting to do some preparation for when we start to lay out the garden. We haven't done the final design yet, we're just playing with ideas. But one of the first things that I want to do is to get to know what sort of soil I've got. So we're going to do a soil test and dig a test hole to see whether we've got a sandy or clay soil. So the idea of the soil test that I'm doing will test for the pH of the soil, and that basically tells us whether we've got an acid soil or a limey soil, and that can influence the types of plants that we grow. So for example, if we have got an acid soil, and I doubt very much we have, it means we can grow rhododendrons, azaleas and all those lovely ericaceous plants. But I suspect, looking at the plants that are growing around us, we're probably going to be neutral. But it's always worth doing, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can buy very simple test kits like this, which is just a little test tube that comes with a couple of capsules, so you can do 2 tests, and you just pay a few pounds for these at garden centres, and it will tell you within a matter of minutes what soil you've got. Or you can buy meters like this, and this is a pH meter, and basically what we do with this is we push it into the soil, we probe it down into the soil. This one does moisture and pH, and it will give us a reading. Now these aren't 100% accurate, but it will give you an indication. But I'm going to use a soil testing kit very similar to this small one, but just sort of on a bigger scale. It uses an indicator fluid and it uses barium sulfate, which will give us the pH. So what I've got here is a little test tube, and I'm doing this now because it takes a few minutes to settle, so we can see the results at the end. It's got indication marks there, so I've already dug out a little bit of soil that's almost dry. So I'm going to fill that. I'm going to use my fingers, otherwise I could be here all day. I'm going to fill this up to the one mark on there, so just a tiny little bit more soil. So that is roughly to the 1 point just there, and then I'm going to get some of the barium sulfate and just take the cap off that, and then there's going to be, it says 1 to 2 scoops, so we'll just put a little bit of barium sulfate in there. We'll go 1.5. And then finally we can top that up with the indicator, and this is the indicator fluid, and that wants to go to the 2.5 mark. So I'm just going to go down to have a look at it, squeeze, 2.5, okay, little squeeze for luck, and then it's a case of giving that a really good shake. And what that will do is we'll detect if there is any lime or calcium in our soil. So it's a really good shake to make sure all those ingredients are fully mixed together, and then we're going to leave it. And you'll probably have noticed that on this here we've got a colour chart, and this gives us the different colours from very alkaline, which is limey, neutral, right down to very acid. So I'm expecting ours is going to be this sort of paler olivey green colour when it's settled. So we'll leave that for a few minutes to do its job, and I'll go and show you a test hole. I've already dug a couple of test holes to get down fairly deep. I've gone down a good sort of 35 centimetres, about 14 inches. It's a good long deep spade. And a little tip is, don't dig just one. Even in a small garden, dig several around, especially where you're going to be planting borders and beds, because the soil can vary even in a small area, so it's worth taking the time to do that. And I've gone down, and on the whole, the soil in this is good soil. It's still really dry. Here we are mid-October, and although we've had some rain, we haven't had an awful lot of rain, and it's not got down there yet, so we're going to need quite a bit through the autumn and the winter. But it's better than I thought. I was expecting it to be a very clay soil. That's what I've been led to believe. There is some clay in there, because even if I squeeze that, you can see that it holds into a shape, but it breaks quite easily. Now that's good. It's got some fibre in there as well. So I think this is going to be a good growing soil. It should drain fairly freely. So I'd say this is a loamy soil, but it's also got some sand. I can feel the grit. If I rub that between my finger and thumb, it's slightly gritty. So it's a sandy loam, which is a good growing soil. But Once I've got down to that sort of 14 inches, 35, although it's dry, that is a lump of clay. I've hit a layer of clay, which I expected. And if I just wet that on the grass, if I just stroke that on the dew, you can see there, if I polish that, it's quite shiny. And that is a good indication. Again, you couldn't do that with a sandy soil. And again, this is quite hard. It's a break, so you can see the clay in there. Very dry, but that is clay. But that's okay. It's nice and deep. Isn't going to cause any problems for when we come to plant the garden. So what I'll show you now is the basic plan. Everything is still very much in the planning stage, but Jill and I have had a short holiday and we took some paper with us and both did some sketches, and we've come up with a rough design, and at this stage it's very provisional. And what we've done, if this is the back garden, so we've got the house to our right here, and we're standing just there where my finger is. So the greenhouse is going to be to the left. I've already got the base in, and then we've got the summer house there. We've got the big apple tree, the lovely Bramley that we want to keep, and what we're planning to do is sweeping borders that go round and flow into the garden. And the idea is to divide this half of the garden from that half of the garden. So the way I've done it, just to mark it out very roughly, is I've used some hose pipe. You could use rope or spray paint, and what I want to do is to create curves. I want this to be a nice sort of country feel. So the curve that goes around there will be planted with a mixture of shrubs and perennials for all year round interest. It will give a little bit of shelter between the greenhouse and the summer house, and the border will continue round there where the hose pipe goes, and it almost then creates a circular garden for our lovely Bramley apple tree, and we'll probably put a nice little seat around there. And at this point I've created this peninsula border where it comes out. And the reason for that is we've got this rather ugly manhole here that we can't do anything about. We can't plant over it, we can't cover it with soil. So it's going to be in this bed that sticks out, and it will be hidden by foliage and ground cover plants. Another border comes round there and it narrows in here, so it's only about 1.5 meters wide. And with taller planting there and here, it will hide this part of the garden from that part of the garden. And we'll put probably a pergola archway here with climbers over it, so you enter into the second garden. Jill's standing on what will be the extended patio, which will come out as far as these canes here. And then it's very simple here. We want to keep it a simple garden. It will be a lawn area, and the border will continue round. So I'm standing on the lawn and the border will be there. The hose pipe's not been behaving itself. It's a bit cold, so it's not in the right shape, but you get the general idea. And we're going to leave these for some protection from the north winds, but also it gives a bit of privacy from properties around. The birds love them, but we're going to lift the canopy of these conifers so you can see into it. And I will plant that as a little mini woodland garden, and it will have a bark path or some sort of path that will go into here, and I'll be able to plant this with lovely ground cover. It will have hostas in the summer and ferns, and then snowdrops and hellebores in the winter. So there's interest to it all year round, and the little path will come out here. So it just makes a nice little walk feature through, and then the border will continue down. So very much at this stage in its infancy, it's only a sketch, but once we've lived with this for a week or so, if we think it doesn't work, then we can go back to the drawing board and do something else. So watch this space. But one final thing to show you is I need to show you that soil test. So let's go and have a look at that. Well, there we go. As you can see, the soil test has settled nicely. We've got a nice clear liquid, quite a dark one, so you know we're above the neutral point, which is 7 into alkaline, near a 7.5, which isn't a problem in itself. It just means that I can't grow rhododendrons in this soil, but I can grow pretty much everything without any problems at all. Even if you're not dealing with a new plot, you've got an existing garden and you don't know what your pH is, it's always worth doing a pH test just so you know exactly what you're dealing with in the garden. Well, thank you for watching Pots and Trowels. And remember, you can watch everything that we've done over the last couple of years on YouTube and on Facebook. Next week, we're going to be sowing some fast-growing spinach and winter salad leaves. So we'll see you then. Bye.